Look at Psalm chapter 63 with me. Psalm chapter 63. Psalm chapter 63. O God, you are my God. Earnestly I seek you. My soul thirsts for you. My flesh faints for you, as in a dry and a weary land where there is no water. So I have looked upon you in the sanctuary, beholding your power and glory. Because your steadfast love is better than life, my lips will praise you. So I will bless you as long as I live. In your name I will lift up my hands. My soul will be satisfied as with fat and rich food. My mouth will praise you with joyful lips. When I remember you upon my bed and meditate upon you in the watches of the night, for you have been my help, and in the shadow of your wings I will sing for joy. My soul clings to you, and your right hand upholds me. If we haven't met you yet, my name is Jason. I get to be the pastor here, and I'm super excited to be in this series called Living a Full Life, and it's just this look at how to fill our lives with the right things. And before I begin, I do want to say that there is an opportunity for us to go to India this year on a mission trip, and it's in the bare infancy idea stage. But if you would like to talk more about it, Rajiv's family has churches in India, and they're interested in having me and him come over and do a pastor's conference over there. And so if you're interested in that, you think that might sound like a good idea and you want to come along, Rajiv and I would love to talk to you after the service today about that. We will meet where the nursery currently is right now, and so we'll kind of have a little bit more conversation about that. Psalm chapter 3 is written in the wilderness of Judah. David is fleeing from Absalom, his son, and I'm going to try to give you quite a bit of background on this. So David has a son named Absalom. He's considered to be the best-looking man in the kingdom. He has this beautiful, long, flowing hair, very much like Jesse does, and just it's very beautiful. And he rides around all day, and everyone is like, man, the guy Absalom, man, that guy Absalom. And Absalom has this falling out with his dad over some very traumatic family issues. And they have this major falling out, and probably Absalom should have been excommunicated forever from the kingdom, but he's allowed back because his dad wants to help him. And his dad brings him back, and Absalom then begins this 4-year plan to overthrow his kingdom. And the way he does it is very interesting. Absalom goes every day to the gate of the city, and he sits down at the gate. And when people come in, he looks at them to see if they're dusty, to see if they've traveled very far. And he says, hey, where are you from? And they say, oh, I'm from this place. And he's like, oh, did you come to see the king? And they're like, yeah. And he's like, man, very unfortunate that David doesn't have time and hasn't organized well enough to get someone to see you. But they're not going to be able to see you today. But I'll listen to what you have to say. And then he would talk to them, and then he would say, by the way, wouldn't it be great if there was a king who just had a person who would listen to you? I'll be that king someday if that's what you want. And he does this for 4 years. No one knows. No one has come to David. No one's talked to David about it, but he's just secretly been plotting. And then he says to his dad, hey, I need to go make a vow to God, which is like just so ironic because I feel like that's what all Christians do. Whenever we're going to do something really terrible, we somehow blame God for it. God told me to do this. Like, no, he didn't. He didn't tell you that, right? We always try to figure that out. He's like, I'm going to go make a vow to God, and I need a couple hundred men to go be my bodyguard on the way. So he gets 200 men, and David is like, go for it. And they go to this other place, and he secretly then announces that he's going to be the king. And when he's the king, when he makes that announcement, many people begin to flock to him. One of those men is a really interesting guy named Mephibosheth. Mephibosheth is the grandson of a man named Saul. Saul, at one point, was king of Israel, and he started off really well, like absolutely crushing it as a king. He was head and shoulders above everybody else, tall, strong, everything you would think a king should be. And he, at some point, meets David and begins to bring David into his life. And David begins to quite regularly help Saul over and over and over and over again. But Saul begins to get jealous of David. So he tries to kill him. At one point, he throws a spear at him. Another point, he sends an army after him. Another point, he brings an army after him, and he just continues to hunt him down, so much so that his kingdom begins to be so distracted from enemies that at one point, an army of enemy soldiers attack the kingdom, and they begin to kill people, and a nurse picks up his grandson named Mephibosheth, and she goes to run, and she either trips or falls or drops him, but he becomes a cripple for life. Saul dies, Jonathan dies, his son, and now Mephibosheth is this heir to Saul's kingdom, but David is king. So David does something interesting. David goes to a man named Ziba, and he says, find me anyone in Saul's family that I can help. So Saul brings this man, or Ziba brings this man, Mephibosheth, to him, and David helps him. And the way that he helps him is amazing. He gives him land. He gives him people to work the land. He gives him all the money from the land. And he tells him, from now on, you will always be fed. And you're going to be fed by sitting at my table every day. So Mephibosheth gets helped by David. David practically makes him into the family of David. And yet, when Absalom starts this rebellion and makes it public, somebody tells Mephibosheth, when Absalom takes over for David and kills David, you're going to be the king. And Mephibosheth is no longer content with the help he's received, and he says, you know what? I'm going to join Absalom. So here's this man who is realistically never going to be the king, but he gives up on all the stuff David's done, and he goes to Absalom, and he's like, okay, I'm in. So this is where David is writing Psalm 63. He's fleeing from Absalom. Mephibosheth and many of his friends have abandoned him. He's practically alone. He's got a small army. They're running into a place called the wilderness of Judah. It is the most barren, inhospitable place in that nation. There's a man walking beside him, throwing rocks and swearing at him. Now, we think a mean tweet is like us being punished, or us suffering for Christ. David's just riding a donkey, and this dude's just chucking rocks at him and swearing at him the entire ride. But look at 2 Samuel chapter 16. 2 Samuel chapter 16. When David had passed a little beyond the summit, Ziba, the man who saw David help Mephibosheth, the servant of Mephibosheth, met him with a couple of donkeys saddled, bearing 200 loaves of bread, 100 bunches of raisin, 100 of summer fruits, and a skin of wine. And the king said to Ziba, why have you brought these? Ziba answered, well, the donkeys are for the king's household to ride on, the bread and summer fruit for the young men to eat, the wine for those who faint in the wilderness to drink. And the king said, and where is your master's son? Ziba said to the king, behold, he remains in Jerusalem, for he said, today the house of Israel will give me back the kingdom of my father. Then the king said to Ziba, behold, all that belonged to Mephibosheth is now yours. Ziba said, I pay homage. Let me ever find favor in your sight, my lord, the king. This is so interesting. David has been helping person after person after person after person. And yet almost all of them have joined his son in hunting him down to kill him. And this man named Ziba comes along and is like, hey, David, I'm here to help. And David says to him, dude, you're helping me, I'm going to help you. And most of us would expect that that's where the story ends, because here in America, we help those who help us, and that's kind of it. But there's actually a lot more to this story. What happens next is David regains the kingdom. Absalom is killed. Everything's going great, and the same enemies that attacked when Saul's kingdom was divided attack again. And I'll give you 3 guesses on who they take captive. Mephibosheth, who can't run away. And I think we would all expect when that happens that David is like, you can keep him. I already helped him once. But David goes to them and says, you can keep all the rest of the captives, but he's with me. And if you want him, you got to fight me. And David helps Mephibosheth again. See, I think if we want to empty our lives of bitterness and negativity, we have to fill our lives full of helpfulness. We live in a chronically negative and bitter world, a world that teaches you through every song, through every video, through every movie, through every show, through every conversation you have at work and with family to be bitter and negative. It is destroying America from the inside out. More than any cyber attack that we receive from another country, the chronic disease of bitterness and negativity is absolutely destroying us. So we've then got to fill our lives full of the right things to avoid that. And in order to avoid bitterness, in order to avoid negativity, we need to be people who fill our lives full of helpfulness. And this is important because we often think that when we help others, we're just only helping others. But science actually has a lot to say about this. Science says that when you help others, you're actually helping yourself, which is probably why God said, bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. Neuroscience demonstrated that giving and volunteering with friends releases oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine. These hormones have the effect of boosting our mood, blocking cortisol, which is known as the stress hormone. Helping others helps you live longer, helps you to be happy, and a recent study showed that those who are recorded as being very happy volunteer at least 5 hours per month. Helping others relieves chronic pain, which is so interesting because I think we would think the opposite, like, well, I'm in pain, I can't help anybody, but helping others actually relieves it. It also, this interested me. Helping others 200 hours per year lowers your blood pressure by nearly 40 points. I mean, that's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. Helping others helps us find identity and purpose, particularly teenagers. Teenagers are shown to have a better self-image and, parents, you will love this, higher grades and sense of purpose when they volunteer and help others. I read that and I'm like, what are we doing at school then? We need to start volunteering, kids. We need to start, like, youth conferences need to be, hey, we're going to teach you, but you're going to go serve. You're going to do this. If it really does what we say it does. And those who are retired or who have kids who have moved out are shown to have a massively higher sense of purpose if they help others. So helping others helps others, but helping others also fills us full of good things so that we then no longer are full of bad things. So then how do we live helpful lives? Like, how do we accomplish this? Do we just sign up for every puppy shelter that has puppies? What do? Well, if we want to be helpful people, I think, first of all, we've got to understand that we also need to ask for help. Ask for help. Proverbs 16:18 says, pride goes before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. Do you know that Jesus quite regularly asked people to help him? I mean, really think about that. Like, we're like, I got it. But the God of the universe was like, no, I ain't got it. I need you to help me do this. The one who created things was like, hey, can you bring me your meal? Hey, can you go talk to her? Hey, can you all go help them? Hey, can you help me? Can you give me some water? We've got to be people who ask for help, and then we've got to accept help. Don't be threatened by people who can help you. It's not threatening when someone wants to help you. Jesus received help. David received help. I mean, think about David. The man kills a lion, he kills a bear, he kills a giant. He's known as killing thousands. And yet anyone who wanted to help him, he was like, okay, sure, thanks. Almost anyone who would come to him, this man who we would look at now is probably one of the greatest warriors in the history of the world, quite regularly asked for help and received it when other people offered it and said, thank you. I think often we want to save people, not help people. So we won't accept help because we don't want to feel insecure. We don't want to feel like you're saving me, you're doing this, but we're just simply helping. So in a church, we can organize help and say, hey, you 3 people are responsible for helping everyone. But it's far better when a community, when in a family, people just start helping each other and saying, let's live as family. Let's help each other. You need your deck cleaned off. You need this done. I'll help you with that. You know what I need? I need my trash taken out while I'm gone. I need my dog walked while I'm gone. You help me. I'll help you. And we live together as a community when we're willing to ask and receive help, which leads us to point 3. If you want to live a helpful life, be a community. Be a part of a community. Organization can only achieve so much, but real outflow, overflow, where we just help each other because that's who we are, is so much more beneficial. But we've got to be a part of a community. You can't help people you don't know. You can't help people you won't talk to. You can't get help from people you've never spoken to. Be a part of a community. Number 4, listen for opportunities to help. Listen for opportunities to help. People will ask you, but you got to hear them when they do. And then listen for what they are asking for help with, not the help you want to provide. This is the hard thing for me. People want to ask for help, and I'm like, I'll tell you what to do. That's advice. Advice is different than help, right? Help is more than prayer. Help is more than prayer. Hear me. I'm not saying you shouldn't pray for each other. 1 Timothy 2:1 says, first of all, pray. But also the Bible does say that we're supposed to carry each other's burdens. And 1 John 3:17 says, if anyone has the world's goods and sees his brother in need, yet closes his heart against him, how does God's love abide in him? Little children, let us not love in word or talk, but in deed and in truth. Help is more than prayer. We should pray for each other. But so often we use prayer as an excuse to not help each other, right? Like, yeah, I'll pray for you, but we ought to be beside them moving that couch that no one wants to move. Help is more than prayer. Also, help is more than advice. Help is more than advice. It's good to give advice when it's asked for. When someone says, hey, will you help me? I need advice on this. I need your thoughts on this. But when someone says, hey, I need help on this, one of the worst things we can do is like, you don't need help. Here's what you need to do. I'll tell you what to do, and give them advice. That's of no benefit. It actually makes it less helpful because now they're like, well, now they just think I'm an idiot. Now I just wanted the couch moved. I didn't want to hear that I need to buy a different couch. Help is more than saying you will help. Proverbs 25:19 is an amazing verse that I love. Confidence in an unfaithful man in time of trouble is like a broken tooth and a foot out of joint. It's better to say no than it is to say yes and not show up the day of. It's better to say, hey, dude, I love you. I'm not helping you move. I've moved 25 times in the last 10 years, and that's it for me. I'm not doing it. I love you, but I ain't doing it. It's better to do that than to say, I'll be there. And then the morning of, like, hey, my cousin's wife's sister's roommate's friend has a hangnail, and so I can't come. It's better to just say no. It's better to just say no. The Bible says confidence in an unfaithful man is like a broken tooth. You know what a broken tooth is? It's not good. It's not effective, and it hurts. A foot out of joint is of no value and hurt. And so when we say we'll help and then we don't help because we've like, I don't really want to do this, but I'm going to say yes and then come up with an excuse, it's actually worse later on. So to live helpful lives, we've got to ask for help. We've got to receive help. We've got to be a part of a community. We've got to then listen for opportunities to hear when people around us need help. When someone in your church family says, man, you know what? I really need to dig a trench. It's an opportunity to say, dude, let me show up. I need to work out anyways. When someone in your church family is like, man, my kid needs a soccer coach, it's an opportunity to say, I know literally nothing about soccer, but if your kid needs help, I'll show up. When someone in our church family has, they're on their 17th kid and they got a new one and they're like, man, it's an opportunity for us to say, I can make a meal. I can help out. Living helpful lives drowns out, empties out bitterness and negativity, completely removing it out of our life, and it's proven to be good for us. So if we want to live full lives, we've got to fill our lives with the right things. Helpfulness is one of those things. Any opportunity to help others is an opportunity to also help yourself. Find joy. Lower blood pressure. I love that one. It's so funny to me because we're so stressed and yet we don't help each other. Living a life full of helpfulness fills us up of good things and removes bad things out of our life. So I'm going to ask you all to stand to your feet right now. Ask you all in a minute, we're going to worship. We're going to have a song. On your chair around you, one close to you, somewhere near you, there's a worship guide. That worship guide has some questions you can ask each other. If you're like, I am not comfortable praying with someone, you don't have to. There are questions there that you can ask other people. If you're like, man, I want to pray, but I don't know what to say to someone, there is actually a guided prayer written on there to just help you out. Like, hey, this is what I think I ought to pray for about this. But if you're like, man, I love praying with people, then I'm going to encourage you in just a minute to find someone. Gather friends, family, people you've never met, people you do know, people you might possibly know but can't remember their name, people who maybe offended you 6 months ago, and now's an opportunity to be like David and help, right? All of these things, we can do these things together as a part of a community. I'm going to give you an opportunity to do those. I'm going to pray. After I pray, I'm going to encourage you to gather together with those you know, those you maybe haven't met before. Find someone, ask them the questions, and then pray together, get to know each other. These guys are going to sing. When the song's done, they'll close the service out, and then we'll all be able to go enjoy the beautiful weather today. Let's pray.